Welcome back to the Spector Creative channel. I'm your host, Toy Guru Neitlich, and today we're going to talk a little bit about The Bad Batch, the Star Wars animated series, and Star Wars play patterns. But before that, a quick detour, because I am extremely grateful to have this channel and the support I've had, and I love to help subscribers who have professional product out there. And whenever I can, I like to give their stuff a plug, especially when it's toy related. And Michael Roberto has done an encyclopedia on Hess truck collecting. And if you are a collector of these vehicles, his book is honestly pretty darn amazing. I'm not a hugely knowledgeable about this particular portion of toy collecting, but man, Michael is clearly a huge fan, and you can get his book on Amazon. I'll put the link in the description. And I want to thank him for subscribing and sending me a copy of the book. It looks awesome. All right, so let's get back to The Bad Batch and how it relates to Star Wars play, toys, why there are some toys and not other toys, and, well, what's it all about? So for those of you who haven't been living in a space slug cave for the last year or so, well, actually a lot of us have been, this is the new animated series on Disney+. It's a continuation of the Clone Wars. It actually takes place right when the Clone Wars ends, and it follows a group of warriors, each which have a different specialty, be it tech, be it strength, be it hunting, and they all have armor, and they fly around in a really cool, unique ship that's very Star Warsian, if you will, with, the three fins, just like a T-16 or the Imperial Shuttle. And a lot of people out there are asking, well, okay, this show is really cool. It's very toyetic. Where are the toys? Where's all the toys for Bad Batch? And specifically, fans are asking about the vintage series, or 3 3/4, if you will, which is sort of the main scale that Star Wars has been at since 1978. Fans are making cool customs of figures in this scale, fans that are way more talented than I am. And there's kind of a hole in the market right now with a lack, if you will, of vintage series 3 3/4 characters. There are toys for the Bad Batch. There's toys in all sorts of different scales. There's Disney Store exclusives for their toy box line. There are Lego toys for those who enjoy the construction or building play pattern, which is different from action figure play, but still a legitimate great way for kids to play. Of course, there's the token Funkos for those who want to display everything, and there's the Black Series, which is great for those who want good price value figures that you can collect, and they've done a great job of finishing the team, which is always important, through a sort of, a combination of store exclusives and deluxe figures and online items, and you can actually, in a couple months, because there's a few figures still coming out, like Omega here, who's sort of the heart of the team, if you will, the emotional center, and, she'll kind of complete the team. Now, there are some 3 3/4 figures, and specifically vintage figures, but these are not the members of the team. They're all just sort of other clones that have appeared on the show that are kind of easy repaints, easy kit bashes, easy refreshes that Hasbro is able to get out there. Now, obviously, people want the team, not just the other characters that appear on the show and, background characters or people who appear in one episode. And this is pretty universal in the toy industry, that if you can get low-hanging fruit out there, toys that don't need to be tooled, just need to either be refreshed or repainted, you're going to do it because it's a huge cost saving. And while it may not please every fan, it does get product out there in a much more efficient way versus it could take, way more time when you have to tool something. One thing that is out there for the Bad Batch is this Mission Fleet set, which has the complete team. And there has been a lot of fans seeing this out there compared to the lack of a vintage series Bad Batch and saying, why does this toy exist? Why is there a Mission Fleet team of Bad Batch hanging at all of my local toy aisles, but I can't get vintage series figures to go with the rest of my collection? And to understand that, let's look a little bit about specifically at the Mission Fleet and why it works so well as a toy line specifically for Star Wars. So the Mission Fleet line, for those of you who don't collect it, and that includes me, I do not own a single Mission Fleet toy or vehicle or figure. It's a series, well, it's an assortment of toys. It's a full planogram. You have, grab and go items that combine a figure with a small vehicle, all the way up to large bottom shelf items with a giant vehicle. It presents characters from all of the movies, the animated series, the original trilogy, the classic trilogy, the prequels, and you can also get, again, very large vehicles, again, packed in with a figure so that it could fit a full planogram. It's, about 2 feet. It's not the full Star Wars planogram, but it's pretty significant. And obviously you can get stuff from the new content too, like Mandalorian. Not only ships, but you can buy packs like that Bad Batch pack and get the entire team from Mandalorian. I mean, more or less team. And yeah, it's very interactive where the figures can go on in controlling the vehicles very easily because of the scale. And that's what's so important, is the fact that this is a line that combines figure play with vehicle play. The reason I bring that up is because as adult collectors, we have a different play pattern. Our play pattern is display. There's my personal Jabba the Hutt display. This is not my personal display. This is someone else's I got off Google, but hey, what a collection it is. We like to take all of our figures and put them on shelves and stare at them and look at them and appreciate them. And it makes us happy. It's like a modern trophy because it takes years, if not decades, to be able to amass this type of Star Wars collection. You can't just go out and buy this in a store. A lot of us have been doing this for, again, decades, if not our whole life. And sometimes we get a golden gem and we'll pay a lot of money in order to have a figure. This is all about acquisition. So it's display, but it's also acquiring rare pieces and being able to show them off in our own personal museum, which we tend to call man caves, or I like to pretend it's my office. All right, so what about kids? Kids play Star Wars obviously very differently. I mean, some just leave them on their shelf, but others play with Star Wars in different engaging ways. There's always Lego, but that's not specific to Star Wars. Lego is about building and constructing. And then there's role play for Star Wars, which is both fun but also dangerous. There were more lightsaber arm cutoffs last year than any previous. So, giving kids lightsabers, not always the best idea. But going back to 1978, when Star Wars toys first appeared, well, it's always been about figures and vehicles. In fact, when the line launched with Kenner, they thought it was just about vehicles alone. The figures were meant to be really a secondary purchase that maybe kids will get, but they really wanted kids buying the vehicles. They thought that this would be the driver. And no pun intended, being the driver, or rather the pilot, became the key to the Star Wars play pattern. I've mentioned this in a few videos, but the ability to put a character behind the wheel, behind the engine, in the cockpit, however you're going to say it, piloting the Falcon, whatever ship it is, that's the avatar of the imagination. And whether it's the vintage line, meaning the 80s line, or the modern line, being able to physically take the figure, put it in the cockpit, and play that out, that is the connection that Star Wars really has that no other toy line does. G.I. Joe to some extent, but you don't see the vehicles anymore. And nowadays, trying to do vehicles for vintage collection or 3 3/4 is tough. This Target exclusive X-Wing years ago, in 2009, was $50. The Target exclusive X-Wing this year is $110, $120, and has one less figure. It only has a pilot. That the previous one had a pilot and an astromech. So yeah, it's really expensive to do vehicles and world building for the 3 3/4 toy line now. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, it was a lot more feasible. So 3 3/4 became the driver for doing vehicles and doing world building. And don't even get me started on trying to do world building with the 6-inch line. This is really expensive. And while they've tried things like TIE Fighters and Dewbacks and Snow Speeders and the Rancor here, it's really tough to sell in large 6-inch scale items. And that's where the Mission Series comes back. So the Mission Series is the only toy line at retail right now that, Lego, but again, that's construction, different play pattern, that lets kids pilot their vehicles. And the ability to take that figure and place it inside of the cockpit, well, that's huge, because that's what gives the child the feeling of control over the vehicle. And that's the link that Star Wars has that a lot of other brands don't. Yes, there are other brands of characters, flying vehicles, but let's face it, or driving vehicles. The vehicles of Star Wars are the coolest out there. The Millennium Falcon is amazing. The Razor Crest, amazing. So being able to put Han right there in the cockpit is a very important part of Star Wars play. And the Mission Fleet toy line right now is basically the line that allows kids to play out Star Wars just like we could when we were kids. I mean, we like to school kids and say, we know how to play Star Wars. What are you talking about? We grew up with it. But, the most, times, or purchase of Star Wars is parents giving gifts, giving their children toys. When I was a little girl, I got so many Star Wars toys from my parents. And now that I'm grown up, it's still important for me to look at value and price, both for toys I buy myself and toys that I buy my own daughter. And looking at things like the Black Series compared to the vintage for a difference of what, $5, $6, $7? That's a big price value difference right there for, mom and dad who's doing the bulk of toy purchasing, whether for their own child or their child's friend's birthday. Again, Lego, awesome. It's out there, but it's not action figure play. Yes, you've got minifigures, but they're really accessories to building something, and that's in the sense of accomplishment you get from building. For Star Wars action figure play, it really is about the combination of figures and vehicle. And that's why this Bad Batch set exists. Because while we don't have the vehicle yet, I bet it's coming, this scale permits that unique play pattern, which works so well for Star Wars and really is the key to children and Star Wars and how they play, or how kids play Star Wars out. Star Wars out? Ugh, I better finish this video before I tongue-tie myself again. Share this video if you can. It's the best way to support this channel. And again, I really appreciate all the subscribers. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments. I try to answer as many as I can. And I'll see you guys next time.